What's good, Internet? My name is attackslug, and it's been 4 years, 4 long years since I've done a predictions video on this channel. But sure, I thought, why not for WrestleMania 41? We've got 2 nights of shows. We have supposedly 13 matches, perhaps 14. We'll see if Randy gets an opponent. But more importantly, this video is being filmed before SmackDown airs on Friday night. Therefore, if things change on SmackDown for match card, match order, match whatever, I don't know, because it hasn't happened yet, as I filmed this on a Thursday afternoon. So, let's break it down, shall we? Night 1, the War Raiders, your Raw Tag Team Champions versus the New Day. And it's been a lackluster heel run for the New Day thus far. It was a very hot start, and very much like, oh my god, they're doing something different with the New Day, and it hasn't really gone much of anywhere in months. And that's been an overall problem for a lot of the Mania build, in that it's been just, alright, what's the build? Like, if you're starting at the Rumble, and now we're at the end of April, there's just too much time there for not enough things to happen in your overall build. So I say that unless there is some crazy Big E appearance, or something happens on a bit of a wild tangent, then I think that the New Day lose and the War Raiders retain. Next up, we have the Lucha legend Rey Mysterio, the GMOAT, the greatest mask of all time, versus the new mask on the block, El Grande Americano, aka Chad Gable. I know. And I think that Rey wins, but I feel like the only way that this match needs to end is the unmasking of Chad Gable and say, oh, guess what? It was Chad Gable all along. Who could have guessed, right? Now, sure, they have, the mask as being with the metal loaded, whatever. Paul Heyman, get out of there. You're going to get hit by a kendo stick. What's wrong with you, bro? He's hiding. No, he's getting off the turnbuckle. So, yes, a victory for Rey. Does he need one? No, but I don't see what the storyline potential of Chad winning here would be. I think if you're going to have it be an unmasking, it'll happen here on the grandest stage of them all. That's kind of how things typically tend to go with that. Now, the guillotine choke on the outside. You can't win the match on the outside there. A singles match with no stipulations. We have Jade, Cargill, and Naomi, which I think will be the shortest match on this card, unless there's some kind of a Bianca shenanigans overall, but she's on night 2, I think, so that could happen. This is a pretty easy, hey, Jade is still not the most experienced in the world, therefore get her in, get her out, make sure it is a heavily rehearsed and competent match with Naomi, because otherwise, what's the point? You have the returning, vanquishing face of the feud, and Jade wins. That's it. So, your U.S. title, your champion, with everybody saying L.A. Knight, yeah, versus the werewolf, Jacob Fatu. And I think that the only way that Fatu loses here, right? Because typically, you're going to say, all right, Fatu and Knight one-on-one, it's Fatu, right? There's kind of 2 real options for him to actually lose this match, and both are perhaps interesting. Number 1 being what happened with Braun Strowman, where he is just so violent that he gets disqualified. Now, it is WrestleMania, and typically a Mania crowd does not want to see countouts, DQs, or, just not great finishes, right? So that's not like, look, it could be spectacular, like with Braun, just hitting it over and over and over with the same move and just making it look amazing. Great, fine. Right, obviously, does not win the title, all of that. But the other option, and I think the more likely option, is some kind of interference from Solo to set off Solo versus Jacob coming up here in the next bit of a cycle, because it seems like we're headed towards Jacob breaking away from the bloodline, and then, yeah, Heyman and Roman. You? Me? What? Funny stuff. So, yeah, it's LA Knight's game to lose, but the only way that really happens, if there is no interference from Solo or a DQ, then Fatu wins, but otherwise, I think, and still, you're U.S. champion because of shenanigans, LA Knight. Yeah. We have potentially the most interesting from a backstage behavior match of the evening, which is your women's champion, Tiffy Time, versus the Queen, the Nepo Queen. Woo! Charlotte Flair. Go to sleep. That's it. That's it. It's got to be it. 1, 2. No, it's not it. Wow. Okay. Crazy. So, the question is, how heated does this match get? How crazy does this get, considering all of the combustible elements of these two? Now, granted, they're both professionals at the top of their sport, right? At the top of their craft. But things can happen, right? Anything can happen, and that's what creates the intrigue of anything that could happen. And I think this smart move is to not immediately have a returning Flair win the title again. Because what? Because why? Because please don't. So I'm pulling for Tiffy, but the 3 things in life are inevitable: death, taxes, Charlotte Flair. Moving on, we have the men's world title, which I think is a pretty foregone conclusion between main event Jey Uso and Gunther, because I think if you did all this build, right, if you did all this build to this point with what you've been doing with Jey and Gunther, it's got to be Jey. Because otherwise, what happens after that with Jey? Back to the mid-card? Like, if you don't capitalize on this moment after that build, then I don't see what's the point, unless you're going to have him go over to SmackDown. Like, it just seems like you have to have Jey win here, and you have to have that crowd shot of your, 50 or 60K all doing the yeet in sync, and that's kind of the deal that you should have, and there's the win there. I think that match will most likely open the show, which is a shame that neither of the Royal Rumble winners actually main evented WrestleMania, but that kind of is what it is. But yes, I'm saying that Jey wins that world title. I think Gunther retaining makes no sense. But otherwise, we have what is the confirmed main event for night 1, and that is Roman and Punk and Seth freaking Rollins. And Paul Heyman in the corner of CM Punk. Will he finish the night with Seth? I think that's kind of everyone's big question overall. And that seems like the obvious route to go, which is not necessarily always the most interesting route to go. But I feel like you could have Seth win here without Paul Heyman's assistance. But here's the thing. If you are finally, after all these years, giving the main event spot to CM Punk in a match that has no title, in a match that has no stipulations, then why wouldn't CM Punk win this thing? Like, that seems like the most obvious. Seth has had his wins at Mania, and so has Roman, and Punk has clearly not. Now, you could also say, well, it's not really main event because it's not night 2, which certainly that is an argument that is out there, but I feel like just let CM Punk have this win, and then he can finally stop talking about it all the freaking time. So, moving on to night 2. Will we have Randy Orton versus anybody? Because obviously Owens is out with a real legit injury to his neck. Get well soon, KO. But if Randy fights anybody, I would assume that Randy either hits the RKO, does the punt, quick match. Like, it could be Kaiser, it could be a returning Rusev, like, it could be anybody. It could be Nick Aldis. So, I think, regardless, it is Randy with the win because Randy is Randy. But the thing is with Randy, that he could lose, and he's still fine. He's still the legend, Randy Orton. So, it's kind of a whatever match at the end of the day, because originally, the whole point of him fighting KO was to hit that punt, right? And that's not going to happen now, so who knows? Now, moving on to the Women's World title over on Raw, we have Io versus Bianca versus Rhea. Io is the champion, and Rhea kind of put herself into this match. And it's been a kind of a weird build where they're kind of very focused on Rhea and Bianca, and they're kind of ignoring Io. And to that end, I say, you know what? Io wins. Like, Io walks out chanting because Bianca and Rhea, who will continue to feud, just can't stop fighting each other. And Io is the smart one and sneaks one and gets the win and retains that title. Now, the women's tag team titles, which is Liv and Raquel are champions, versus Bayley and Lyra. It's kind of a weird mishmashed tag team. And Lyra is the IC champion, so that's, again, okay. It's been a weird build for Mania this year. It's been too long and not enough happening. But if anything here were to happen, I could see a Lyra turn on Bayley or a Bayley turn on Lyra, causing the champions to retain those tag team titles. Now, in a match that I do not care about at all whatsoever, the phenomenal AJ Styles is stuck fighting Logan Paul. I'm sure it'll have some nice high spots, and I'm sure they'll give Logan a Mania win, because why not? But I just could not possibly care less about that scumbag. Anyhow, the IC title on the men's side. We got your champion, Braun Breaker. We got Dom. We got Finn, both in the same faction. And Penta in that matchup. A 10 count? Bro, well, I just say, you don't finish a Mania match with a DQ or a countout, morons. So yes, the IC Fatal 4-Way match, which should be most interesting, but I feel like what's going to end up happening to further kind of everyone's storylines is that somehow, some way, Dominic Mysterio walks out your new IC champion. Now, is that by pinning Balor is the question, but there's certainly things you can do there with Dom as the champ. Being the totally cowardly champion would be a good bit of business, and then you can still do more stuff with Penta and Braun Breaker and whoever else in that whole mid-card. But that brings us to this match. The only match currently, as I am filming before SmackDown, they could add more steps to something, but currently this is the only one that has a stip, which is the Sin City Street fight between Drew and Damian. And I feel like these two men, of anybody on this card, have the biggest chip on their shoulder and have the most to prove to knock this match out of the park. I'm hopeful for both men, but as far as the ultimate winner, give it to Priest. Whatever. And that brings us, wow, he missed, to the main event of Night 2. The last match on the Showcase of the Immortals. John Cena, the heel, versus the face, Cody Rhodes. And that's going to be John Cena. Like, the only way this heel turn is going to make the most sense over the next 6 to 8 months between now and the end of the year is John Cena winning the title and saying, hey, end of the year, I'm leaving, and then you had to keep throwing the face at him to try to get that back. Under no circumstances should he leave with that title. Therefore, keep throwing all of your top guys at him to try to get it back, and those make for compelling matches as the year goes on. Like, for example, if we got to a Money in the Bank, and it's champion John Cena and challenger CM Punk, but it's heel Cena and face Punk. That's compelling. So having Cody walk out as champion does not make any sense to me. If Cena had stayed face, that's different. But we're not in that here. Plus there is The Rock. Plus perhaps a Travis Scott. Don't, but I'm saying it could happen. Those are your options there. But at the end of the night, what makes sense is John Cena leaving as the 17-time world champion on your Mania moment, etc., etc. There you go. That's Mania. Kind of a for me this year, but I thought, you know what? It's been 4 years. I'll sit down and do a video on my thoughts and predictions. So I am attackslug. More videos on this channel soon. Every day, but not every day. I don't know. I'm tired. So I'll see you here. See you next time for more videos, and I'm out.